Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my worst reads of 2023. Okay, first and foremost, before I get into my worst books of 2023, sorry about the audio quality. My microphone, I lost the connector that I use for it, and so it's just using my phone's mic, which is not the best, apparently, but I'm ordering a new one. It should come in soon, and I realized after I was editing my videos from last week that it is not the way that it normally sounds, so I'm fixing that ASAP. But in the meantime, I did want to talk about the worst books that I read in 2023. Full disclosure, all of these are romances. With how hectic my last year was, it is kind of my fallback genre to go to because it's something that I don't have to think about super hard. I could just like enjoy the ride and enjoy myself. And so with everything that was going on, I read a ton of romance last year. Unfortunately, that means that I read a lot of not great romance this year. Anybody that has ever delved into the romance sphere of Kindle Unlimited or KU will understand what I'm talking about. You get some really, really great stuff on there, and you get some really, really not great stuff on there. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into these. The first one that I wanted to talk about was Beautiful Disaster, and this is a book in the, I don't remember the name of the series, but I'll pop the cover up. Essentially, I read it because one of the Sprouse twins was going to be in a new movie last year, and obviously I want to support the Sprouse twins, so I don't even remember which one it was. I want to say Dylan. I think it was Dylan Sprouse, but regardless, I grew up watching The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I love those two, and so I wanted to read the books that this was going to be about. They have a bit of a following. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know why. Not to say that I didn't read the majority of the series, because I did, because that's what you do, right? So I read Beautiful, I don't even know which one in the series this is. I want to say it's the first one, but I could be totally wrong. Anyway, I've talked enough about the backstory of this entire situation. Beautiful Disaster, or at least this entire series, follows this girl whose name is not even memorable to me at this point, who is attending college, and one night she's out, I want to say she's out with friends, and she goes like and gets dragged to this underground college fighting ring, and she meets this guy whose name is Travis, and they kind of become friends because she firmly puts him in the friend zone just because she's like, hey, I've heard stories about you and I don't want to be one of those people. And so he kind of starts to pursue her a little bit, and then he backs off, and he's totally okay with them being friends, but that puts them into an awkward situation because she needs a place to live, and he ends up making a bet with her that if he can beat this guy in the fighting ring, then she has to live with him for like a certain amount of time. Fine, whatever. I've seen more ridiculous college romance premises. The writing was okay. The storyline was okay. The characters were ridiculous. Just absolutely over the top ridiculous. And honestly, when you watch the movie, if you decide to watch the movie after this entire rant that I've gone on, it's not his best work in any way, shape, or form, and I don't even remember the actress's name that's in it, but it's definitely not hers either, and it's not even like a fun, cute, like, I can accept that this is a bad movie, but I'm gonna enjoy it anyway kind of a situation. For me, it was just cringe. The whole thing was cringe. All of these on this list are gonna be like 2 or 3 stars, so I'm not really gonna go into all of my ratings for you. Anyway, it was interesting. I will say that the Beautiful Disaster series, whatever it's called, like branches off and follows his brothers instead. His name is Travis Maddox, and it follows the rest of the Maddox brothers. I think it was actually a little bit more interesting once you got to them. I didn't finish it. I kind of died off when I got to that point. I just wasn't really invested anymore, but I will say that the actual stories of the brothers, in my opinion, were better than Travis's and whatever her name is. I re-entered my paranormal romance era last year, and with that, I started reading a couple of like werewolf shifter romances. Used to be my thing. Honestly, would still probably be my thing. Not the direction that I went though. So the first ones I'm going to talk about are Shadow Wolf and Shadow Bride. They're in the same series. They're 2 books in the same series. Okay, I don't remember a ton about these, so I'm just gonna give you a little breakdown. I guess I think that she is. I could be confusing this with something else now that I think about it. So the first one, Shadow Wolf, she is the daughter of like this prominent family in a wolf pack, and she's nothing like any of the other wolves in this pack, and she doesn't understand why she's never felt like she fit in or whatever, and they are meeting with an enemy wolf pack to try and settle some kind of treaty. And immediately as she meets this like super dangerous whatever alpha, like a mate bond clicks into place, and they're like, oh my god, you're mates with this guy, but you're kind of like betrothed. I think she's like got a best friend or something that's supposed to be the next alpha, and she's like supposed to kind of be betrothed to him. And they're like, oh my god, you can't be mated to this awful pack of wolves, whatever. And I guess he can kind of like see that on her face, and they can kind of like talk or something in their minds just because of this mating bond. So to save her from this, he's like, I denounce you as my mate, whatever, snaps the mating bond or something like that. And they go on about their business, and something happens and she runs away, and she ends up running to his wolf pack, I think on accident, and realizes that, oh, they're not so bad after all, and they become mates, and there's a whole storyline that goes on with that. It was fine, but not great. It was juvenile is not really the word that I want to use here, because it was definitely not. There were scenes that were not juvenile. It was pretty smutty. Not even in like a good smut kind of way though. It was just smutty, in a vaguely Omegaverse kind of way. So, the series continues on with her and this, and like the wolf pags are fighting, whatever. It was the storyline was fine. The characters were fine. The writing was not it though. I definitely did not drive with the writing style, and there were a lot of like mistakes that could have been fixed in editing that just really bothered me. Anyway, moving on. That was the first of the not great shifter romances that I read last year, or the first series in which. The next one was called Mismatchmates, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, you know that I'm not a huge DNFer. I'm pretty sure I DNF'd this. It was awful, and I don't really remember too much about it, which is the theme of these, which is why they're on this list. But he's a wolf, she's a wolf, they're on campus. I don't think that wolves are like known about, so they're in like a normal human college, and she's like in love with her professor, and she's dating her professor, I want to say, like on the down low. And he realizes that she's his mate, or at least he's like really interested in her. I don't know if he specifically realizes that she's his mate, and starts to like pursue her, but he he thinks that she's in love with the professor, but he like knows that the professor's treating her wrong. It's this whole thing. He's a football player, but he's not supposed to show that he's a football player. If you hear click clacking, that's Jinx's toenails on the floor. She's like right here. And yeah, I DNF'd. I have no idea how this ended. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that his dad was supposed to be like this mega asshole who didn't want him to attend a human college because he's supposed to be the alpha heir to their pack, and she's something else. I don't know. I didn't love it. Couldn't even tell you the number of reasons why, because it was not it for me. It felt like it was trying to be a college sports romance, but it wasn't a college sports romance because it was like a college shifter romance, but also it was like kind of, I don't know. Don't recommend. In December, I entered into my Hallmark holiday reading phase, and in that little slew of holiday romances, I read Good Elf Gone Wrong, and let me tell you, this was wild in so many different ways. And I'm gonna discuss spoilers for the book. If this bothers you, I guess skip ahead, but I'm gonna discuss spoilers for this book because I can't convey to you how crazy this entire thing got until I actually tell you how crazy this thing got. So she is planning her wedding, and it's like Christmas Eve. They're getting married on Christmas Day or like something along those lines, and she's planning her wedding to this guy who works for her family business, but like her family is pretty much useless, so the business would not be running without her. But also she is unique. We're gonna say she's unique. She is very, very into Christmas, and she is very, like, unhealthily into Christmas, in my opinion. But I guess I don't know. You do you. She lives her entire year for the Christmas season. That's all that she cares about. That's all she's excited about. All she's ever wanted was to get married on Christmas Day. So, when her wedding to this man rolls around, it's Christmas Eve. She goes downstairs because she thinks she hears something in the kitchen, or she was like up early baking. I don't know. She was doing something in the kitchen, and she hears noises coming from the living room, and she apparently thinks that it's her grandmother watching porn, which is like some whole other thing to unpack. I don't know. But instead, it's her sister actively having sex with her fiance under the Christmas tree, and they're both like in costume. She's like dressed like an elf and he's dressed like Santa, and they're making all sorts of Christmas innuendos that were highly disturbing. She like stands there shocked for a while, and eventually they finish what they're doing, and she like makes herself known, and obviously they break up, and immediately thereafter he proposes to her sister instead. And so then she starts planning her sister's wedding to her ex-fiance. That is the naivety of this particular woman, and she is literally the definition of a doormat. She just lets everybody walk all over her. She does everything for them all the time. She cooks everything for this family, and she makes cookies for Christmas, and they take advantage of her. Just like they do in the family business. She does everything for that, and nobody ever even shows up to work, but they just reap like paychecks from it still. I don't know. So anyway, she's on her way home the following Christmas for her sister's wedding to her ex-fiance that she's planned the entirety of. So she meets this man on the bus, and she offers him essentially like a blowjob if he will come home with her and pretend to be her boyfriend or whatever, to like protect her from this whole situation that she's getting herself into. And after like making fun of her a little bit, he accepts, which, red flag. I mean, on so many different levels. He doesn't accept the blowjob, but he does accept to do it for no reason that you can really see. And she's like, oh, he's not really going to. But then he just like shows up at her house, and you don't actually know how he knows where her house is, which is red flag number 2. And she overlooks all of this. I mean, she regrets that she asked him, because like she's like, oh my god, I don't know what I got myself into. But at the same time, she's like, okay, let's roll with it. And he's like actively like degrading her and making fun of her. Oh wait, no, sorry, it wasn't just to pretend to be her boyfriend. It was to break up her sister's wedding to her ex-fiance, because he wanted her to seduce her sister away from the ex-fiance, because he looked like he was exactly her sister's bad boy type. And so she brings him into her family home, and he's like degrading her in front of the family, and like making out with her, and like making all of these sex jokes in front of her family, which was a whole other crazy situation. And then in the end, you find out, or not even in the end, like shortly thereafter, you find out that he agreed because he's been investigating her, specifically her. He's like been hired by this company to get secrets on her family's company because they're embroiled with something illegal, and somebody else wants to buy out her family's business to get a patent or something that they own. I don't know. So he's like, the only reason he said yes is because he already knew who she was, and he needed a way into her good graces, because he was going to try and use, I don't know, his relationship with her to like hack into the family's accounts. And it just continues on that wild, wild route. And I don't even know how to describe the rest of this book to you. And honestly, I think that there might be more. Like, I think that this author wrote more in this, but I can't. She is supposed to like have some personal growth and learn to stand up for herself, but she doesn't ever actually stand up for herself. He just stands up for her in front of her family, which is kind of not really the point, in my opinion. But I finished this. I don't know if that's something to brag about or not, but it wasn't great. It was just weird. It was a crazy ride, and that's all I'm going to say about it, because I'm going to move on to the next one, or the last one, I guess, in this video, which is called Puck Me Secretly, which was supposed to be a hockey romance. And honestly, it started out awesome. I really, really liked the way that it started out, because she's like a nervous flyer, and she like kind of gets a little bit drunk, and then she ends up on this airplane next to this really hot guy, and They don't really know each other at all, but they kind of talk a little bit, and then that's, I mean, she's the end of it. She learns about where he's going and why, and he kind of learns about where she's going and why, but they're talking around each other. Like, he got a new job in Canada, and she's going back to her family business in Canada, and that's kind of all they say. And then the plane crashes, and he kind of like saves her life. I'm not really sure how. Lots of people died, but they managed to miraculously live. And he drags her out of the wreckage and saves her life. And so they're kind of like tied together because of this. And fast forward to them like getting on, or no, sorry, back up. Okay. So then they're like put up in this hotel before they're on a new flight to their prior destination, and they kind of like share one night together, sort of, and then like move on with their lives because they're like, okay, we're trauma bonding, whatever. And then they think they're never going to see each other again. And then fast forward to when they get to their new destination and they both start their new jobs, and it turns out that she has nepo babied her way into being like the assistant owner of the hockey team that he is now a player on, which is an awkward dynamic. And I don't really know how to talk about the rest of it, but the plane crash becomes very, like, unimportant, which doesn't seem like it should, but it does, because so many other things happen, and they still kind of fall in love somehow. I think that my issue with this was mostly the writing. Some of the scenes just felt very, like, stilted and not natural, and that's something that's going to take me right out of it. And if I'm reading something and it doesn't really sound like something that someone would actually say in a conversation, I'm just kind of like, really? Were we trying to hit a word count here? Because like that doesn't really track with me. So there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of not great writing during the smutty scenes, which also really took me out of it, that I was like, oh, okay, no, absolutely not. So yeah, all around, that was not my favorite hockey romance of the entire year. I might do a video on my favorite hockey romances of last year, because last year was the year of hockey romance for me, more so than any other like sports romance or any other contemporary romance that I read. I read a lot of hockey, especially during like November, December. So I might do a video on that as kind of an uplifting ending to this depressing video about the things that I did not like that I read last year. But that's it for these ones. So if I interested you in any of these, Godspeed and good luck, because they were some crazy things to read about. And honestly, I have no desire to go back into any of these series again. Or try any of these authors again, but they might be for you. If that is the kind of thing that you're into, have at it. And that is it for this one today, guys. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And down in my description box, you'll see links to my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram in case you wanted to follow me on any of those. But I'll see you in the next one. Bye!